Welcome to Tigers Untapped, a Bluff City Media podcast. Stepping up to the microphones are your hosts, Trey Lasley and TJ Willis. Pull up your chair, grab your favorite brew, and enjoy the conversation. Now, let's get to the show.
What up? Welcome back to Tigers Untapped, another edition, the 3-0 edition. Timothy, it wasn't pretty, but we'll take it.
No, not pretty at all, actually. It was
is a win, are wins ugly? We just
wins are definitely ugly. You can have ugly wins for sure. I think we've
just
had plenty of ugly wins.
Isn't that what
Just
you're
win.
always saying, is just win?
Yeah, who cares?
We can
Just
have
win.
all ugly wins for all I care if we end up being 12-0 at the end of the year. All right, this may be a very quick episode because TJ's got me drinking some cucumber something or another, cucumber lime. And I'll eat cucumber with ranch. I'll delve in that. But I'm not a fan of cucumber water or cucumber vodka. So I don't know that I'm going to like this cucumber lime grosse.
Look, man, you get to the liquor store. You make your pick pack.
Timothy.
You make your pick a six pack, and you just
Cut the
pick ones
episode.
you've never had before.
Cut it. Talk about grosse. Okay, we'll get to that. I'm gonna have to force that. Oh, that is
It is
cucumber,
something, huh?
There's cucumber in that. It's
It's not that bad, but
got a little bit of pickle in there. I mean, I know cucumber pickles are cucumber, but there's like a salty. How long have these been sitting?
probably about a week before you got them. A week before you got it.
Wow, that is interesting
Yummy.
to say the least.
Yummy.
All right, Timothy, they pulled it out Thursday night football, the first ESPN call. We had Dan Mullen. Did you see the facilities tour that they did? And all the beautiful things that old Coach Mullen had to say about our facilities.
I'm a little intrigued by those comments because it kind of sounded like they were shots at a couple SEC schools per se. So
I don't know, it was a couple, but I would definitely say probably Mississippi State.
It was definitely at least one. I think that was kind of obvious.
Can't imagine
right?
that Florida has better facilities, or we have better facilities in Florida. Or not sure, but
yeah, I would agree with you there.
Also, it feels like Dan is maybe campaigning a little before the old head ball coach here in Memphis, if it ever opens up.
Who's to say?
Would you be on board for that?
Well,
what's it matter? We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
We have a head coach.
We'll get to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. All right, beautiful night in the Bluff City at the Liberty Bowl. TJ, absolutely perfect weather-wise. I got there a little bit late. Mom had to work, so Dad had to take care of old Kit Kat, get her down, but I made it in. And I'll be honest, I was listening on the way. Forced Navy to punt on their first possession, and then you literally, just like that Bethune game, I mean, you marched right down the field and put 7 on the board, and I thought, wow, this is about to be another beatdown. This is about to be another 35-3, 35-10 type of game. And Navy put up 14 quick ones right after that.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I actually missed the entire first quarter, essentially. For those who didn't see it, I lost my car keys on Tiger Lane. I walked around. Yeah, I walked around Tiger Lane the entire first quarter looking for my car keys. Thankfully, someone turned them in. I found them. It didn't get any better because I sat through that game. It was a very up and down game, right?
Tiles don't work on the key when the battery's dead, huh?
Exactly. So I couldn't ping them to find out where they were at. I'm pissed because I'm like missing the entire game, and I'm hearing things happen. I just can't see what things are happening. I don't have the patience to like pull out my phone and try to watch it because I'm like texting my wife. I'm like, hey, I am in trouble. I need help here.
The real problem here that you're not mentioning is you don't have spares.
Exactly. I don't have a spare key. So yeah, correct.
That was unfortunate.
Yeah, I found them though. And then I had to watch that game, and it didn't get much better there for a bit. So
It really didn't. You go into half 14 all. Thankfully, you put some points on the board right before the half there. Beautiful catch, little fade ball over to Roc Taylor right before half to get it knotted up, and then you get the ball back to start the half and go down there and score, take a lead. It felt like, I don't know what just happened.
Like I'm using the weirdest of Wi-Fi down here at the beach, so let it happen. I may drop in and out. Who knows? I'm back, baby.
He's back. Yeah, so it was good to get the 7 right before half, knowing you got the ball back. You definitely needed that momentum wise. Obviously, being down 14-7, you created a fumble. You weren't able to convert on points there. This is good to take it into the half tied up, and then come out, open up that second half with another tutty after you had just scored right before the half. Yeah. To me, going into it, and I said this to our buddy John, who we sit with, I was like, I'm not really worried defensively. And boy, the first quarter especially, but the first half, everything we talked about up to that point, gone. Like open field tackling in general. I mean, we had guys there, but it looked like Tiger teams of the past were like, we're whiffing tackles, guys not wrapping up, busting long plays. Silverfield and the team talked about it in the post game. I think given the short week, you're trying to rest guys, right? Trying to keep them fresh. So they didn't do any tackling leading up to the Navy game on that short week, which looking back is probably not the best. I would imagine that they don't do that again. You don't have as quite of a short week. I don't think you actually have a short week like that moving forward, because even the Tulane game that's on a Friday, you've got to bye the week before. So essentially you have 2 weeks there. But I can't imagine that they'll go into a game and not having had tackled again. But I felt like coming into the second half, the defense was going to be fine. We've seen that before where we've kind of struggled a little early on in Navy, and then you pitch a second half shutout. To me, in the first half, what was more concerning was moving the ball offensively and not being able to sustain drives and put points up like I thought we would be able to. So I was more concerned with what's the offense going to look like in the second half.
You kind of broke up there at the end, so I missed what you said.
Oh, I was just saying, I was really worried about what's the offense going to look like in the second half based on what
sure.
Are they able to sustain drives? Are they going to be able to put points up? They come out, like I said, they end the half with a good 2-minute drive, get a touchdown out of it, tie it up, come out, first drive of the second half, march down, get 7 points, take the lead right away. So that I felt like was kind of an answer to what I was questioning. Are they going to be able to sustain drives, put points up, or are they going to flip the script? And I felt like at that point in time, okay, here we go. It's time for the defense to step up. Maybe let's run away with this, win by 14, 14-ish points, right? I think the line ended up closing at like 11.5 just before kickoff. There was a crazy movement of the line right up to the last hour within kickoff. But the first half wasn't the best half of football we've seen out of this football team.
No, and I think I would agree with you. I like I said, I missed the first opening drive, but I heard it was incredible. So I went back and watched it. I think it was like a 90-yard drive.
Yeah, they Navy punted, got us down to the 10. I think it was exactly 90 yards. You marched straight down the field. I mean, can we script every drive from this moment on? Like, our scripted drives are incredible. Our first scripted drives have been 2 out of 3 have been great, with the exception of the first drive at Arkansas State.
It's looking back at the offense, it was definitely, it struggled mightily, I think, in the second quarter. Like I think there was a point in time where they had negative yardage, and we had negative yardage in the I think maybe it's early on in the second quarter, something like that. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, I know Navy is a decent defense.
Yeah.
Compared to Memphis.
So you score a tutty, 90 yards, like we talked, 13 plays, 90 yards, 5:23 time of possession on that first drive. After that, you punted 4 straight times. The first 2 drives of the second quarter, your first drive was 3 plays for -5 yards. Your second drive
That's what
was
it
3
was.
plays for 2 yards. So at that point in time, two drives in, I mean, you're essentially 10 minutes into the second half, and yeah, you're sitting at -3 yards offense in the second quarter.
That's brutal. And you can't have that. It doesn't matter if you're playing Navy. Honestly, if you were playing Bethune that way, you may be able to get away with it, but it's not a good look, I think, from an optics standpoint, to perform that poorly against a team that you have more athletic players, you have better athletes all in general, all around. So it's kind of
And that's
inexcusable.
not to discredit Navy at all. This was definitely, I felt like
No.
a much more athletic Navy team than we've seen.
Sure.
I mean, that what I don't Texa, I don't know how to say his name. That little white speedy
The running back guy,
47.
yeah.
Was that his number? That dude was quick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a different level of athleticism, right? Like if you're coming to Memphis to play football, you're more likely just a kind of like a football player, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
have the same training that they're going to go through at the Naval Academy and things like that. So the stamina is probably a little bit different, just the way you're training and doing things like that. So it's just different, honestly. You would expect if your sole focus is to play football, then you'd be pretty damn good at playing football. But Navy, those guys they're playing football, but they're also, in the Navy, right? So
yeah,
it's just interesting.
So we talk about the opening drive of the second half. You get a tutty. Navy ends up going down and scoring a touchdown themselves to knot it back up at 21. You drive back down a 7-play, 33 yards, 320, and attempt a 50-yard field goal, I think, that misses just wide left.
Yeah.
So you're still sitting there knotted at 21. And then the defense kind of stood their ground. They forced 3 straight 3-and-outs from that Navy offense, and then you put a tutty up on the board right there at the start of the fourth quarter to take a 28-21 lead. Following drive, Navy gets a field goal, cut at 28-24, and then from then on out, TJ, those last 6 minutes of the football game was absolutely bananas. I mean, we ended up, Blake Watson, obviously, haven't even talked statistically, but Blake Watson had 2 great runs in the second half, I think both of which ended up being 69 yards. He's got, I don't know if he takes ballet as a class or what, but my guy's got absolutely incredible balance on the football field. That little spin move, one-footed, kept his balance, got all the way down. We thought maybe he might have scored, toe just barely out on the white, and then, of course, ends up fumbling on the 1-yard line. If he puts that in right there with 6 minutes left, I mean,
different conversation.
Over, right?
Yeah.
You're up 11, 6 minutes left. And that's not to say that Navy might not have come back down and scored. Obviously, they were even not really being down by too much, throughout the entirety of the game. They still threw the ball, I think, 20 times, which is more than we've probably seen combined the last several years. But I think it's just a different game at that point. If we punch that in, you got 6 minutes left, 7 minutes left. You're up 11. One more stop and the game's for sure over. But unfortunately, you end up fumbling right there on the one. And it was an exchange, right? Like we're down on the opposite side of the field. So it was hard for us to see. It looked like he ran into Chisholm's butt. Like we thought it was a butt fumble.
Yeah, it was a butt fumble.
Like he ran into his own dude and it popped up in the air. But watching it over in the replay, it was just, he never even really got the handoff, right? Like Seth sticks it in and he never really grabs it. And then it just kind of pops out. And they end up getting they didn't even recover it on the one. They recovered it in the end zone. So it ends up being a touchback, right? And they get the touchback, 20. Yeah. What is it? 3 plays later, I think. And I don't know why Navy was doing this 2 QB thing.
It's a great question because Horvath is not good.
I know Horvath, he had both of their fumbles and a crucial one there. They were kind of moving the ball. He cut it up the middle and I think was about to get 5-6 yards. And then Simeon Blair just absolutely, could not have been a more perfect hit on the ball. Shoulder straight on the ball, pops it straight. That was the other thing about all of these fumbles. they were all popping so high. I've never seen balls pop like that, TJ. You ever seen balls pop like that?
I can't say that I've ever seen any balls pop like that.
I mean, it was wild. So you get the ball back, you're feeling good. Now you got, what, 4 minutes left? You think, okay, this is definitely over. At the bare minimum, get a field goal, make it a 7-point game. What's more difficult for Navy than a 2-minute offense where they got to get a touchdown for sure? And Seth, I mean, on 3rd and what was it, 3rd and 8 or so? Just an absolutely brutal throw from Seth over the middle that led to an interception and gave Navy the ball back near what, midfield almost? I think on the 45 probably, with just about 4 minutes left, or about two minutes left, 2:20 left. And I got to be honest with you, Deej. At that point in time, I was dead set on having my heart ripped out of my chest, and I thought it was over. We were losing for sure.
No, I think that's a very fair feeling. I mean, hell, we went through it 3 or 4 times last year alone. But this isn't last year. This is a new team.
It started to feel like last year, but when they had to, the defense made the play that ultimately won the game. And mind you, it was much closer than it needed to be. You had a horrible pass interference call that got them down there, a couple other little chunk plays, but ultimately, right there, literally directly in front. I mean, we sit on that front row right there at the 10-yard line.
Quite literally in front of us. Knew
immediately that he was short of the first down. And we sat there and watched the side judge run up, mark the spot, kind of fumble the ball to his right, and then just take a step right and place it down like that was the original spot. And TJ and I mean, TJ started screaming in Latin. I don't even know what was going on, but I was fairly certain one of us was about to be arrested.
One of the worst calls I think I've ever seen. Like the placement wasn't even relatively close.
Not, I mean, it was a good,
extended his hand out or anything.
It was a good 1.5 yards off of where it should have been, for sure.
I mean, it worries me too, because when Bell made the tackle, it was Jeff Canton. Arku was sitting right there, and I'm like, he's gonna break free, and then Arku is not wrapping him up, so this dude's gonna spin out of it, and he's just gonna walk into the end zone, or something goofy is gonna happen.
You don't have faith in our boy Jeff to wrap anybody up?
He wasn't prepared to make the tackle at all, and I was so scared. But it doesn't even need to get there, because DJ Bell wrapped him up 1.5 yards short.
Great, yeah. I mean, it was a great
sign sealed delivered.
Great open field tackle by DJ. So save the game. Whoop that trick ensues, which was really, to me, I know I saw people on Twitter, you can't whoop that trick and you're supposed to beat this team by 10, 11. Mine was directed at the refs, to be honest with you, due to the egregious pass interference call right before that brought them 15 yards closer. That outrageous spotting maneuver that the side judge pulled, like, that had nothing to do with Navy or even really honestly winning the game. It was just like kind of an FU to the refs for me.
Yeah, look, people are always going to let the line, something that Vegas decides, dictate how you should feel about something, and I think that's so goofy. So goofy. Like, if you're live watching the game, like, yes, maybe Memphis was supposed to win by 2 touchdowns, but if you're live watching it, you realize that's not how this game is going.
And and that last 6 minutes, that last 6 minutes was such an emotional roller coaster. I think that's all that was. It's just like a big relief of
sure.
Like, in a situation where it felt like last year we ultimately would have lost that game, they figured out a way to #finish, as they say this year.
Yeah.
Whether that was an ugly or a pretty finish doesn't matter. They finished all over that field.
You talked about it just briefly earlier. In the first quarter alone, Memphis allowed 195 yards, mostly caused by the 75 and 77-yard drives by Navy. How many yards do you think Memphis allowed in the second half?
Total.
So we're talking first quarter versus second half.
What did you say the first quarter was? 175?
195, I believe.
195.
So that's
Yeah, it was
one
just the
quarter
first
versus the
quarter.
entire
Holy
second half.
cow. Well, I think they ended up with 415 yards total. So I'm going to say they probably had 125 in the second half. I don't know how many they had in the second
196.
quarter.
So basically, you matched the first quarter to the second half. So it's more so just to bring up Barnes and his adjustments that were made at the second half. Like, even though we didn't look great on offense, the defense
and
was still kind of
again,
humming along.
and a lot of that again was in that first quarter, especially like, they hadn't had live tackling in a week, and
Sure.
some of that rust got knocked off, and they started not only being in the position to make the play, but making the play. Like some of those runs that were broken for 20-ish yards where he bounces off 3 or 4 guys before we actually bring him down. They were the first guy getting there was making the tackle.
Sure. Another thing that we talked about from last week, looking forward to the Navy episode, was third downs. I don't know if you happen to see the third down numbers, but we are up to allowing 50% conversion on the third down versus Navy. I'm going to chalk that up to it being a triple option personally.
Which still, and those were, right, a lot of those are going to be shorter yardage third downs, right? But I still feel like 8 of 16 isn't awful by any means. Obviously, what I think we said last week, we were 4 of 28 defensively on third down before last week. So what's that make you now? You're 12 of
40s, 30s, 40s%.
12 of 44 on third down. So teams are converting third downs at 27%. Yeah. So one out of every 4 third downs is a conversion. I'll take that any day. But again, against Navy, it's because those are short yardage, right?
Yeah.
It's a 3rd and 2, a 3rd and 1. They're not getting into a whole lot of 3rd and 8, 3rd and 6.
I am curious to see how that carries over with Mizzou. That way, the first 2 games, you're obviously, there's been a lot of questions around, okay, well, it's Bethune, right? It's an FCS team. You're like, okay, well, fine. We'll play a Sun Belt team. Okay, well, that's one of the worst Sun Belt teams. So when you see it against Navy, it's like, okay, are the Tigers, were their numbers only looking so good because they weren't playing the best of competition? Or is it, maybe Navy's just really good because they, it's 3rd and 1, 15 different times, right?
I think it's a combination of things. It's the short week. I think Navy came in prepared, right? They talked about even in their bye week that they prepared for us. Newberry mentioned that. So all in all, at the end of the day, he got the dub. TJ, did we find our 2 offensive weapons for this year in Blake Watson and Roc Taylor on Thursday? Blake Watson is now 10th nationally in all-purpose yards. I don't know if you knew that.
I think I saw it on Twitter, something like that. But I think Blake is an obvious gimme, right? I don't think there's any excuse to not give him the ball any way you can, right? I think we're seeing it consistently, passing to him. I think it's like 4 or 5, sometimes 6 times a game. I think that's great because that's just the little play extending drives or drive extending plays, excuse me. Obviously, he has home run potential. We've seen it several times now, right? So I think he is a definite key factor. I would like to see Blancomsey used just a little bit more. Honestly, I think Roc is fine. I think Roc has definitely the ability to make some big plays, as obviously we've seen 3 games in. But I think that we should definitely see Demir used just a little bit more, and I'm curious why he's not getting looks.
Yeah, Demir with only 1 catch per 8 yards. He did get targeted 4 times. I know at least one of those was over in front of us. DB just came in late, knocked the ball up, made a great play. It was on a 3rd down. I think the 3rd down that ended up leading to that 50-yard field goal try. So we were, a hair away from a conversion there and a good completion for Demir. But yeah, I think Blake right now is the guy you got to put the ball in his hands. Talking about 10 attempts, 169 yards, 1 tutty, 2 69-yard runs on back. They were not back-to-back carries in the game, but 2 carries consecutively for him were both 69
Yeah.
yards. And again, just great effort plays, great ability to keep his feet and keep churning his feet down the field, staying in bounds up to the 1-yard line. And then, I mean, on the other side of that, receiving wise, puts up led the team in receptions with 6, tied with Rock, and then 68 receiving yards to go along with 169 rushing yards.
I am curious to see if they continue to keep him in the backfield or if we start seeing them do 2 back sets and then moving Blake out wide and just try to get some mismatch there. Like try to put him on a linebacker directly and have a linebacker try to chase him down. Just try to find some way to put the ball in your playmakers' hands, but also to get them in space. But
even some of what they used to do with Kenny, right? Where maybe he does start out lined up in the backfield and then you motion him out wide into a slot area.
Yeah, same idea.
Receiver out there, yeah.
Yeah, it's ideally trying to put the ball in your best player's hand, but also giving him space to work with. Because I think we saw even against Navy, like the offensive line isn't exactly punishing people on the running game. So if it ends up being
definitely, I mean, obviously they were able to open up some holes, and to be honest, like I felt like the pass protection was fine against Navy. I think you only ended up giving up 2 sacks to Navy on Thursday night, so it wasn't like I didn't feel like he was. Well, the stats have him at 1 sack and 5 tackles for a loss, the Navy defense.
Yeah. I think the bigger thing is that they were able to,
with 1 QB hurry, by the way.
Yeah, basically not necessarily get to Seth, but they kind of closed in the pocket a little bit. They really tightened up around him. It wasn't like a widespread pocket. It was definitely much more tighter on him. So he was kind of feeling closed in, and he rushed a couple of throws. I think that's why we ended up getting that interception late in the game in the first place. So I think it's got to be better overall offensive line play. I mean, I'm not saying anything that no one already agrees with or doesn't already know.
Does that throw in that decision made by Seth worry you at all? There's been a lot of talk about people saying he hasn't taken the next step, as a lot of people would assume as a third-year starter. Are you seeing some of that?
I definitely expected
a little bit more. A lot to be desired out there.
Yeah, and I think that is due to the style of play, right? And I'm not necessarily saying that's all on Cramsey because I think he catches the heat for it, but I think this is all a philosophy. And Ryan saying like, hey, I want to be a team that runs the ball, that opens the pass, right? And Cramsey's obviously just kind of, I mean, he may agree with that. That may be one of his styles, but we've seen him play 15 different styles of offense so far at every stop he's been. So I do, in a sense, think that Seth and, in a sense, Cramsey are kind of being handcuffed by Ryan's beliefs and philosophies. But, who's to say, right? Every time we go out there with 2 tight ends and a running back in the backfield, essentially, well, you kind of lose a lot of your playmaking weapons on the outside. So it's kind of just an interesting offensive set if you're trying to get Seth to put up huge numbers, right? It kind of feels more like they want him to be this era's Brady to me. Just a game manager more than a Riley who's going to go out there and just air it out and win you games.
And make plays, yeah. All right, final thoughts from Navy. I mean, a win's a win, right? They did it short week, triple option team, through a triple option team that has thrown some different wrinkles we probably haven't seen before. I hope that they never go a week of practice without hitting ever again. Don't ever do that. And we move on to Missouri. You got any final thoughts, TJ?
No, a win's a win. Look, we would be bitching left and right if they were to have such a close game and then lose it. But the silver lining is you came out with the win. That's not something you were going to do last year, right? It may have been an ugly win, but we saw several times last year, like we mentioned at the start of the pod, several times last year where you would have lost this game last year. So
yeah, I mean, you gave Navy every opportunity in the world to take that game. And at the end of the day, you made the plays necessary to come out on top.
Sure.
So We'll take a quick break. When we come back, Tej, we will preview the Battle of the Tigs that'll happen in the arch city of St. Louis. We'll be right back.
Hello.
I'm not going to miss a lot. I don't think I'm going to miss a lot basketball-wise from Dylan. But there are so many things about Dylan that had nothing to do with him putting a ball in the basket, or not putting the ball in the basket. That I'm going to miss more. I'm going to miss his stuff, man, his antics, the stuff he said. No matter what you say about Dylan Brooks, you can never say that he took games off. You never say a game you feel like he was half-assing it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's a very entertaining dude, man. And he embraced being a villain. I'm going to miss that about him at all.
I enjoyed being around Dylan, and
he's
great, the Dylan the villain thing, was fun to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan was one of the guys. He would sign every autograph. He'd take every picture.
Yeah.
He was great with kids. I think his persona became so big that it outstripped his performance on the court. Most media people aren't talking about guys that average 12, 13 points a game.
Yeah.
But they talked about him because he was colorful.
Yeah.
Tune in to The Anthony Sane Show, Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
I got a semi-death threat one time. Cotton Bowl 2019.
Over what?
I have no idea. But
Yeah,
this dude was DMing me some
Vile.
horrific stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what could you have possibly said that would move somebody during the Cotton Bowl to
Well,
do that?
I will say during the Cotton Bowl, and this is well documented, I've talked about this multiple times, I was enamored by Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
And so,
Should
like,
be.
possibly 70% of my tweets revolved around Micah Parsons and how
Well,
good he
he
was.
wrecked the game.
This Memphis fan was not cool about it, and it wasn't after the game; it was during the game. Like I remember being
That's
in
one
the press
part
box.
of fandom that really does bother me. Is like, you can talk about good players on the other team.
I don't know if it was actually death threats, but he was certainly threatening.
He was mad.
to take action upon me.
He
Keyboard
probably
Warriors.
didn't even have like a real name up there. It was
No.
probably a burner account of some
Yeah,
sort.
did not have an actual picture or anything.
You know how
like that.
damn soft that is. That's
Soft.
soft as shit.
There you go.
Soft as hell.
It's good.
Tune in to On the Bluff with Christian Fowler and Gabe Kuhn every Tuesday at 12 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. Bluff City Media and Bluff City NIL are proud partners of Coaching for Literacy, a Memphis nonprofit using the power of sports to impact childhood literacy. When you donate to Bluff City NIL through Coaching for Literacy, your gift is 100% tax deductible. This partnership is a win-win-win. Tiger student athletes win in the NIL landscape. Coaching for Literacy wins by engaging Tiger student athletes in this monumental cause. And most importantly, elementary students in Memphis receive support to become strong readers. To donate today, visit coachingforliteracy.org/bluff-city.
All right, what's up? We're back. Timothy, we got a big one in the STL. Was supposed to be in Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, but it's in St. Louis. And it's going to be a neutral site, which is effectively a Missouri home game, especially now that they're off a big win against Kansas State last week. And their kicker freaking booted a 61-yard game winner. Are you serious? What an absolute kick that was.
Yeah.
From Harrison Mevis. He's a thicker kicker. I don't know if you've seen him. That guy's got some
Ham
thickness to him.
hocks. Yeah. And I will
No
say,
wonder
I guess
he's booting 61-yarders. Freaking tree trunks and legs.
you know, I was definitely one who was a little shocked that they beat Kansas State. But I guess if you want to beat Missouri, then you would rather them look like a good team than a bad team, right? I think you would want them to win that game versus Kansas State. But at the same time, you also don't want them going into your game clicking on all cylinders on offense and defense. So weird catch 22 there.
I think you and I both, after their first two games, thought Kansas State would probably win fairly easily. I think the line was like 3.5, and we probably both had it in parlays. But yeah, I think you're right. Beating a 3-0 Missouri team fresh off of a top, what were they, 15 victory, much better for the resume. FPI on ESPN had it last week as basically a straight up 50-50 match before week 3 games. It's now leaning Mizzou 57-43 for them to have a chance to win. The current line is sitting at -7. I saw it at -6.5 yesterday, over under at 52.5. Timothy, that Missouri team looked different against Kansas State. Coming in, first 2 games, they'd ran the ball an average of 43 times in their games with South Dakota. A game they won 35-10, and then the week prior against MTSU won a squeaked out a 23-19 victory, but averaged 43 rushes, and were only throwing the ball about 22 times with Brady Cook. Larry Burden III was, I think he had a touchdown or so through 2 games. He's averaging about 110 yards a night. But then against Kansas State, they flipped the script and they threw the ball 36 times with only 28 rushing attempts. So basically flipped 15 usual rush attempts into passes. You think that had anything to do with, were they playing a little bit of possum there for K-State and trying to hide what they really had, or was that more of just kind of the way the Kansas State game was going? It warranted more throwing. They had leads in both of those South Dakota and MTSU games. So is that why they were just kind of more pounding the rock in those? And then the Kansas State was a little bit more of a nail biter, so they were airing it out a little bit more with old Brady Cook there.
Yeah, I definitely don't think Mizzou was playing possum, right? It kind of seemed like they always had the lead in the first 2 games. So like you're playing South Dakota and you're playing MTSU, you had the lead the entire time. So there's no real reason to air it out over and over and over again, right? So that doesn't shock me one bit. I don't think they're playing possum. I think that's their game plan. I see a lot of similarities between Missouri and Memphis. I think they're teams that are going to run to set up the pass. And it just kind of depends how the game's going to go, right?
Sure. In that K-State game, obviously ended up winning 30-27, like we said, on a 61-yard field goal. Brady Cook, guy under center, number 12, was 23 of 35, had 356 through the air and 2 tutties. And then they had their guy Schrader with 10 attempts rushing with 58 yards. No tutties, but he had a long of a 36-yard run. And then second in attempts was Brady with 10 attempts for 2 yards. So that's got to be a lot of being flushed out of the pocket, because I think Kansas State was getting some pressure on him. I didn't get to see a lot of it. I mean, we had it up. I was at a wedding that was in Kansas City, Missouri, with some Missouri fans. So they had it up on the phone. I was trying to watch as much as I could. But Kansas State, 2 sacks, 8 tackles for a loss, 2 quarterback hurries. So they were getting into the backfield, that K-State defensive line. So that could be something to watch out for. Given opportunity, this defensive line could maybe get back there, put some pressure on Cook, try to force some early throws, get the ball out of his hands quickly. How are we going to lock up Larry Burden III, though, Timothy?
It's a great question. I mean, I think we've seen pretty good play from the cornerbacks so far. Obviously, Navy is kind of a weird way to look at it, right? Because it's run. They start to creep up, then they sneak a pass in. So obviously they're gonna burn you a little bit, but you're still, I think, in terms of passing yards, one of the top 10 passing defenses per stats, per the yards per game. So
sure,
I'm not too worried about Larry Burden going for, what's his name? It's not Larry. Why did you call him Larry Bird?
Luther Burden III.
Luther.
It's a homecoming game for old Luther. He is a 5'11" sophomore from St. Louis, Missouri, so he will probably have quite a few kinfolk in the crowd.
Sure. I don't think it's a game where he's going to go for 200 some odd yards or anything crazy like that. I do think that we have the cornerbacks that are good enough to me knock on some
He is
wood there.
very clearly Brady Cook's favorite target. I mean, he is doubling up every other receiver. He's got 22 catches on the year, 327 yards wise, averaging 15 yards a catch, a long of 47, and he's got 3 tutties through 3 games. Next there is Theo Weiss Jr. He's a bigger bodied receiver. I would say that's probably who DJ Bell's probably lining up on. You got a senior out of Allen, Texas, 6'2", 192. So DJ Bell with that size would be a nice spot right there. Who do you see lining up on Luther Burton first series we get out there? Who's got that assignment?
Seems like it's going to be Brumfield, honestly. I think he's the one that makes the most sense.
Let's see Diego might not be a bad game with how fast old Luther is. We might see some Feaster out there, some Feaster speed to keep up with old Luther.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the beautiful things about this team this year is the amount of depth they have at cornerback. So if a guy gets gassed, you feel pretty confident about putting in a Feaster, a guy who's played a good amount of football games, and say, hey, all you got to do is man up. It's a man on type of game. So just stick them and you'll be good.
I hope we stick him. This feels like a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe a Tank Dell situation, a one-man show. I hope, TJ, he doesn't go for 250 or I'm blaming it all on you. Feels like a 253 tutty kind of night out of Luther. In his home city, are you kidding me? In the Dome? He's dreamt of this moment.
No, man. I'm not. No. I do think one thing that gets forgotten in this, I think a lot of people take a dump on Brady Cook. I don't think he's actually as bad as a lot of people say.
I've heard you take a dump or two on old Brady. Right there on his chest.
I don't think
the old Cleveland steamer.
What? No. I don't even
You've
think he's that
all
bad.
over it.
You look at his stats, he looks good. He is literally does exactly what they want him to do. I think he's the only SEC starting quarterback that doesn't have an interception.
That changes on Saturday, I'll tell you that much.
That's a pretty good chance. The Tigers have been pretty good about taking the ball away. So I just don't think he's as bad as people are making him out to be. It's not like he is the reason Mizzou has not been incredible. There's been more to it on the offense.
They have 1 turnover all year long, Mizzou does. And it is an interception, so now I'm very curious to see who threw this interception. Sam Horn, backup QB, threw a pick against South Dakota. So, essentially, their starters, their ones have no turnovers so far. Could be a thing to watch on Saturday. All right, offensively, Tej, what do the Tigs got to do against this Missouri defense? They're an older defense. They got a lot back from last year. So far have held South Dakota to 10, MTSU to 19, and then a good K-State team to only 27.
Yeah, I mean, I think the strength of that team starts with their defensive line. So I would start off by not running it straight up the middle against them. It seems like a pretty good game plan. I want to say they're a top.
Please,
I don't know,
get the ball to playmakers out in
run
space
defense
and give them a chance.
Yeah, I think that's what you'll see.
I
think you'll see a lot of the speed passing out when DBs are played off. So you'll get the screen plays. You'll get the frustration from the fans. People getting mad because they don't like that play. It's not – a lot of people don't like the sideline throws. They want to go downfield, go vertical. And I think that's actually probably a pretty good way of beating Missouri. They are not the world's best pass defense. And I think that will eventually open the run. And you can kind of take advantage of that D line and kind of eliminate them and take them out of the game as much as possible, honestly.
Yeah. FPI's got us rated 51st. Missouri is currently 41st. When you look at the efficiencies overall, defensively, they're 59th. Memphis is currently 20th in defensive efficiency. And then offensively, Missouri is 41st. Whereas the Tigers are currently 87th offensively in efficiency. So a little bit more balanced of a ball club efficiency-wise, at least for Mizzou, whereas Memphis is a little bit more defensive strength team. through the first 3 weeks of the season. But yeah, let's get the ball in Blake Watson's hands. Hit Roc Taylor. Would love to see Demir involved a little bit more than he's been the last couple of weeks. I know he had 4 targets and only 1 catch last week, but let's try to get the ball to him in space, see what he can do. But yeah, no inside zone against this SEC defensive front, please. Please space it out, spread the ball out.
Well, I mean, I haven't gone back to look at the replay of Blake's run, but there's probably a pretty good chance those were inside zones. So you can't say you don't want them all. You just don't want 20 of them necessarily. So
cut them in half. All right, Tej, give me your first tutty prediction.
I mean,
by the way,
Blake
I got
Watson.
it last week with Blake.
Yeah, Blake Watson seems like a really good choice. He seems like the one that they're going to target the most, as they should, I think is the fair statement there. So Blake Watson seems to be the easy choice for me.
I'm going to do something a little bit disgusting in and of myself, and I'm going to say Luther Burden III. It's the first touchdown of the game. From a Tiger's
I always thought this was first Tiger touchdown.
Okay. It is. I think Blake is the new tight end from last year pick. Like, you got to go with Blake on the first tutty. I'm going with it. Sticking with it till it burns me.
I'll tell you what, I'll flip mine. I'm going to say Seth.
Seth, we talked about this on Thursday.
They like Seth down in the red zone.
He could have been a sneaky pick for leading the team in rushing tutties because he's up there right now. I think he has 4 now.
Yeah.
4 to what? I think Blake has 5.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Seth. I think they run the read option down low or just go under center and just kind of man him through. Not a fun pick,
that read option worked on Thursday against Navy. Just absolutely everybody bit on the handoff inside there. All right, Tej, line is currently set at 7. We mentioned the over-under is at 52.5. Give me your score prediction.
It's going to be tough, honestly. And I think I'm making this decision based off how he played against Navy, which could hold true. It could also be a one-off, right? We don't necessarily know yet. I do think the Tiger, let me reword that. I do think Memphis does not get it done. I have Memphis losing 30-20, so relatively close. But I do think Mizzou will.
Is that we score late and make it look a little bit better, or maybe Mizzou punches one in late to kind of see?
I think Mizzou is going to punch one in. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think in my season preview, I had this as a dub. I was just high on life, feeling like we were going to get it done. I still think the opportunity is there. They are very beatable, especially coming off an emotional border state rivalry game where you just knocked off top 15 Kansas State off of a 61-yard field goal. You're coming into St. Louis, which is going to be basically a home game for you, playing a G5 team. You might get a little bit of the overlook factor. I don't even know who Mizzou has next week. Let's look at that real quick. But all of that to say, I just right now, based on what we saw Thursday, where we're at, being essentially a road game in St. Louis against an SEC opponent, they're at Vandy, so I don't know that you're going to really get an overlook factor here, even though that's going to be their SEC opener. I think it's a good game. It's just at the end of the day, I think it's going to end up being like 30-24 Missouri or something. 28. Yeah. Which one? Well, we just had a 28-24, but 31-24, something like that. I don't know that we're going to be able to contain Luther all night. I don't think necessarily he may have 250, 275, but I think he's going to get he's going to have obviously over 100 yards. And they just got the depth of the SEC. They're going to have the home field advantage. I'm going to try to be there, trying to rally the troops here in Memphis and make the trip up. So who knows? Maybe we'll pull it out. I'm going to throw this out there, though, TJ. Random thing to happen. I think there's a blocked field goal on Saturday.
Okay. That's pretty random. was trying to think if I had I do kind of have a question. Does this game matter to you? Like in the grand scheme of things, does it matter to you?
I would
Or is it just another win?
absolutely. Two things. I would love to win because of the stunt that they pulled and not playing here. I think it would be incredible to not only have them pay us $1 million, but then to go beat their asses in St. Louis. Two, because of the optics, they're a 3-0 SEC team. They're getting a little bit of love from the media, especially after last week's win against Kansas State. So I think optically that looks very good. And the hype I think you'll get from that going into Boise State next week is something that I would really love to see the football team have.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't stand in the way of the ultimate goals of this team, which is to win the American Conference and get to the New Year's Six. Does losing to Missouri hurt right now? Yes, in a sense. But if you go out and you win the rest of your games, you beat Boise State at home, you beat Tulane, you beat SMU, you end up in the American Conference Championship, you're still probably the top G5 team and have a real shot at making the New Year's Six. So at the end of the day, no, this isn't the end of the world if they don't go up to St. Louis and bring this one back. But it would be damn nice if they figured out a way to do it for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking it really only benefits you because it sets up how important that game against Boise is. Because to me, that's like the most important game that you're going to play outside of any conference game. Because losing that one could potentially come back to hurt you, even if you won every conference game. Because if you lose to Boise, then there's a chance that Boise is the number 1 G5, so you don't get the auto bid to the New Year's Six Bowl. So I really want them to go into the wow. Let's start that over again. So he get them getting the win at Mizzou, then going into Boise State undefeated with momentum. I think you're going to get the crowd into it. I think the team is going to start buying in more. It's just
Tiger football.
You really need that. But
absolutely
the win.
And I think it is
whatever.
I think it is very doable. This is no world beater, SEC team. This isn't, by all means, it's not Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss coming in here as 2 touchdown favorites or anything. Granted, that was in Memphis, but still, you get the point. Like, yeah, you're going to St. Louis. You're only a 6.5, 7 point underdog. Like this isn't. You're not incapable of doing this. I mean, shoot, everybody in their world just thought that Colorado was about to overrun Colorado State. And granted, that's a little bit more of obviously a rivalry game.
Sure.
So anything happens. But when you go into a game and you're a 23.5 point favorite, like people are expecting you to steamroll. So, I mean, this is why they play the game. Again, just given where we're at, what we've seen this team do on the road the last couple of years, I'm not there in being confident enough to pick them to go out there and win, especially based on kind of what we saw and the struggles we had on Thursday night against Navy. But that's not to say I will not be surprised next Monday night if we are drinking a much better beer and celebrating having kicked Missouri's ass in St. Louis.
Let's hope so. I'm just going to chalk it up as that was Missouri's best game that they just put out against Kansas State, right?
Yeah.
I don't follow Mizzou enough to understand if it was or wasn't, but I know what we put out there was not great and we could be so much better. And there's a good chance that was the best game Mizzou will play all year. So,
sure. All right, Tej, let's get into Thunder Pick and Fade. TJ, we're both victorious again. This is becoming a habit. 3-1 for both of us. TJ had Penn State minus 15.5. They won by 17. I gave you the over in the Florida State Boston College game. I think it was over 48.5.
Yeah.
And both hit. So we are both currently sitting at 3-1 on the season with Fade TJ and Thunder Picks. TJ, give me your week 4 Fade TJ pick.
I almost feel like I need to come up with the new name if I'm going to.
Yeah, do we need to talk about this? Because if people are following the name and actually fading you, they're probably pissed off because they're actually 1-3 now.
Yeah, that's not great. Maybe it'll start back up this week. I don't know. I'm gonna go out on the limb. I have James Madison minus the 5.5 at Utah State. Utah State's like
at Utah State. Wow, look at James Madison. rolling out to
Yeah.
the Utes.
Yeah, Utah State is 1-2 on the year with just a lone win over Idaho State. Meanwhile, the Dukes of James Madison are 3-0 with wins against two decent teams in Virginia and Troy. I don't see enough there, even if it's at Utah State. Not really tested enough, and I think James Madison's pretty damn good. That's one we should probably look out for the
that game's
best
at
of the
Utah
G5.
State. What time? You know what time like that? Well, the problem there is, Timothy, they are not eligible for the New Year's Six.
Why are they not?
So because they're new to FBS, I think it's it's at least a 2-year.
You have a grace period.
Yeah, you can't. They're not eligible for at least 2 years.
That's stupid.
Yeah. Otherwise, they probably would have been in the running last year. Weren't they like 11-1 or something last year?
Did you just make that rule up?
I did not make that rule up. It's a fact. Look it up. James Madison is
All right,
not
I'll look it up.
eligible. The Dukes are not eligible for.
Weak. Oh yeah, I see. I see.
It is. It is. I don't. It is very weak. I don't get it. I mean, if you're good, you're good, right?
You're good. Yeah. If
they
you
were
can get there,
8-3
play it.
last year. All right, my Thunder pick this week, a little bit different route. I'm going SEC. Give me South Carolina -6.5 or -6 actually at home to Mississippi State. South Carolina Spencer Rattler just gave Georgia a run for their money on Saturday at Georgia, 24-14 loss. Mississippi State looked like absolute dog water this weekend against LSU at home. Will Rogers hasn't really looked the same. They struggled with Arizona at home 2 weeks ago. Their first true road test this weekend in South Carolina. So give me the Gamecocks -6.5 for my Thunder pick this week, Teach.
Yeah, I like that one. I think that's a smart pick, honestly. They've looked pretty good this year.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler's a truth. I'm just kidding. Let's get into this absolutely disgusting brew that you for those of you that are listening or watching, this is the first time in the history of TJ and I doing podcasts that I have not finished the beer that was chosen. That may not be true. I guess Andy's meant I didn't finish either. Did I?
Really?
I don't know.
I
know
finished
for
mine.
I mean, this one is not finished, and I'm not going to finish it. A pint was too much. I could have done maybe one of those little tiny mini brews that you sent a photograph of earlier that you had at the beach. But 16 fluid ounces of this stuff it's not happening. It's just
I don't like gozas. I don't like sours. This is kind of brutal the entire time. But the fact that it was also cucumber lime was not helpful. Just to jump in the can, I mean, they fully embody the green theme of drink your greens.
I mean, this
cucumber.
This can is painted as if it were a cucumber. You see the cucumber lines in there?
Well, in the actual cucumber itself.
Drinking your greens is also disgusting. Never been a fan of those things. This can is fine. It's got the bear on the trike bike. It's not really doing much for me, though, so I'm going to give it a 5 flat.
I'm going to go higher than that. I'm going to give it like a 6-8 because I see what they're doing. They're sticking to a theme with the drink your greens. The whole thing is green. It's designed
maybe
like
if
cucumber.
I liked cucumber flavored drinks, I would be all about it. But this thing was
the beer is not going to be very high for me.
It is not. I mean, I'm going to go ahead right now, and I'm giving you a 3-1 because this is gross and I didn't finish it.
A 3-1.
You think that's high or too low?
I mean,
that feels high, to be honest with you. But I'm trying not to.
Again, I don't like gozas, so like maybe someone.
I mean,
else
there's 16 ounces in here,
good.
And there are probably 10 ounces left, and I will be dumping that out.
I'll give it a 5.5 only because I was able to drink all of it. I did not enjoy it.
Timothy forced himself And it's probably because he's at the beach and he's been day drinking all day already. So he just,
Yeah.
there's no issue. He just guzzled it down.
Yeah. Day drinking all day with 2 kids at the beach in the sun all day. It's been a blast. I think a 5.5 is probably fair. Yeah.
All
I mean,
right.
it's drinkable. I would never drink 2 of them in a row.
I will
I'm not
never
even sure I
attempt to
want to
drink
drink
this
the
again.
Yeah, I don't even know if I would ever drink it again, but
If you
just now that I know what it tastes like.
ever pick something like this again, your beer picking privileges are revoked.
Look, I'm just saying. You guys should try it out. Just try it
Don't.
out. If you see it, just try
Do
it
not.
out. Just for science.
Don't, unless you love cucumber water stuff that's a little bit sour too, don't do it.
It just tastes like a sour to me with the hint of cucumber. But
It's gross.
all right, that's it. Not a high score.
All right, Timothy,
Wouldn't
enjoy the
recommend.
rest of your beach trip. This time next week, let's hope we are celebrating a Tiger victory up there in the dome of STL. See you next week. Come with the Cold Beer Stay Without Takes. Peace.
If you enjoyed this episode of Tigers Untapped, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Like and subscribe at Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports.